gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
What is going on, CaneSport, and good morning to you all. It is Friday, May 3rd. I'm Izubee Charles, joined by Stephen Wagner, and thank you for joining us on Good Morning CaneSport. We have a ton of news for you this morning, updates on top recruits, portal news, and more. But we're going to start off talking about some local high school football. WAG's spring football is back in South Florida, and we've been to a few schools over the last few days: Miami Central, American Heritage, Chaminade-Madonna. So let's start talking about those guys. Our first stop was out to Miami Central, powerhouse known for producing a lot of top talents. And a few guys in that 2025 class Miami's chasing. You had the chance to speak with guys like Ezekiel Marcelin, Randy Adarica. What are your thoughts coming out of Miami Central and speaking with those top guys?
Miami Central, I think, is going to have a very strong argument for having the best defense in the entire country this year. I seriously think that might be the best high school defense in America. Randy Adarica, he's going to play defensive tackle at the college level. He has played on the edge at times, but I really think he's going to make his living at defensive tackle. 4-star prospect who's going to OV to Miami. Ezekiel Marcelin, 3-star linebacker who's being recruited at will. Miami's battling both Penn State and Louisville for both of those players. Although I do believe that Adarica could potentially also take visits to Pittsburgh and Rutgers. Then you've also got guys like 4-star safety Amari Wallace, a guy that I RPM'd to Miami a while back. I've actually entered RPMs for all three guys, and I do think that there's a good chance that all three guys could end up being Hurricanes. And then on top of that, you also got guys in the interior like Floyd Boucard, a 3-star defensive tackle who transferred into Central this offseason from Alabama, and before that from Canada. He has really, really skyrocketed on a lot of colleges' rosters after he won the Defensive MVP award at the Under Armour Miami camp here in early March. And he was a guy who was having little to no contact with Miami before he won that Defensive MVP award. He came down to Miami twice during the spring. It looked like Miami definitely had the momentum for him at a time. It looks like that momentum might have fizzled out a little bit. It looks like he might have been riding a little bit of a post-visit high because now it does seem like the race is much tighter. He also has OVs set right now with Louisville, Oklahoma, and Oregon, but there are still a bunch of schools out there, even beyond just those three schools, that are absolutely in the mix for him. Schools are continuing to show interest. Offers are just continuing to pour in. Mario Cristobal has been directly involved in this recruitment. He's going to go ahead and take that OV. But yeah, this Miami Central defense is absolutely loaded with talent that Miami really does love. It wouldn't surprise me if there's a reality in which Miami ends up taking 4 defensive players from Miami Central. I think that absolutely is a possibility. I'm not predicting that it will happen now because, quite frankly, I'm not really certain what might happen with Boucard. I think that race is really tight. And I don't feel quite as solid about Marcelin now as I previously did. Although I do think that Miami is still in a very, very good position for all 4 guys.
Yeah, I feel like every year under Mario Cristobal, there's that one high school that he really recruits and lands, multiple guys out of. Not saying he doesn't recruit all these schools equally, but, his first cycle was IMG, landing guys like Francis Mauigoa, Riley Williams, Antonio Tripp, and Jaden Wade, who recently transferred but was a part of that 2022 class. Last year, we saw him really attack Chaminade, Josiah Trader, Zaquan Patterson, Jeremiah Smith, those guys. And then this year, man, it looks like for South Florida teams or Florida high school teams, Miami Central is that team that they're really, really going after with a lot of the guys you spoke with. And I kind of want to touch base with a few guys I had the chance to speak with as well, starting with Amari Wallace. I know that's one of your favorite recruits in the 2025 class. Had an awesome interview with him, talked about his recruitment, his go-to order at McDonald's, and a bunch of other funny stuff too. So a great kid on the field, and then off the field, he's a character as well, a guy that you want to bring into your program, a guy that says, he's going to go to a program, work hard, keep his nose clean, and just do stuff, which you love to hear. Also spoke with, Nashawn Montgomery, a guy that was on Miami's radar, still has a lot of love for the Hurricanes, but we're going to see how that one plays out. And like you mentioned, E.J. Marston, very, very athletic linebacker who Miami is very interested in. So a bunch of awesome stuff coming out of that visit to Miami Central we have on the site for you guys, so make sure to check that out. 2 days ago, I was at Chaminade-Madonna, another school filled with talent, filled with guys Miami's chasing. One guy in particular that I really talked to and really enjoyed my time with was Chris Ewald, 4-star recruit. Most of the time he's more of a quiet guy, keeps to himself, doesn't really say much, not outgoing, brash guy, but I really had the chance to go one-on-one with him. It was a great conversation. We talked about the Hurricanes a little bit, and we really got to know Chris Ewald on the latest installment of Inside the Lines. He loves to fish, and he kind of told me about him playing chess and how it relates to playing cornerback, which I thought was a pretty cool thing, of knowing your opponent's next moves and adjusting. So check out that update on that. Steven, I know a lot of other, 2026 guys and 2025 guys at Chaminade. With Ewald in mind, who are some other guys that you're excited about at the Lions program this year and beyond?
Man, all right, hang on for just a second because I want to circle back around to the fishing thing. There is a weird thing going on with defensive backs and fishing because I'm not sure if we've ever told this story before, but whenever DJ Pickett, the number 1 cornerback in America, the number 4 overall recruit in America, was down in Coral Gables for his last unofficial visit, he came down with his cousin Booker, who was a 2024 Miami signee. We saw DJ just kind of walking around campus, hanging with himself or hanging by himself, maybe doing some stuff with Booker. Didn't really think much of it. Then all of a sudden, we see him walking around with a scale to weigh fish and a fishing rod. This man, the number 4 overall prospect in America, a consensus 5-star recruit and the number 1 corner, came on an unofficial visit to Miami, had the Hurricanes pull out all the stops for him. And you know how he wanted to finish his visit in the last couple of hours on campus? He wanted to go fishing somewhere. He literally grabbed a fishing rod and a scale. I have no idea where he got the scale. I have no idea where he got the rod. I don't know if Miami has something like that inside their facility. I truly have no idea because it was so bewildering to me that this guy was actually just walking around campus just looking to fish. A potential major recruiting get for Miami, a guy who's going to OV here and a guy who could be the crown jewel of Miami's class if they get him this year, was just walking around campus looking for fish, just hanging out and fishing. And whenever he walked back in, one of the coaches asked him if he found anything, asked him if he caught anything. He goes, some small stuff, but nothing, really that big. And that was about it. And then he just walked back into the facility with his fishing rod and his scale. And then he left the facility and he didn't have his fishing rod and his scale. So I guess he left it there. I genuinely was absolutely astonished whenever I saw that. I was at a complete loss for words. Now then, Izubee, what did you ask me?
So I just want to add on to that too. When I saw Pickett walking out with his cousin Booker just looking for fish, I'm just like, what the heck? Aren't you, supposed to be inside with the other guys? But a prospect like that, I feel like you can come on a visit and do pretty much whatever you want, and they'll be happy with it, just getting him on campus. But I wanted to ask you about, the Chaminade guys and, with Chris Ewald and then maybe Jabari Brady and a few other guys. Who are some guys, at that program that you're excited about?
Man, shoot, I think Jabari Brady has to be the really, really big one that I'm the most excited about. Obviously, the buzz around him has been around Ohio State early. But, man, I mean, looking at this guy, it's like Chaminade just keeps on bringing in elite receivers after elite receivers every single year. Jeremiah Smith and JoJo Trader last year. Now Jabari Brady's a top 25 overall prospect. I mean, man, just looking at him play in 7-on-7, had a chance to watch him work out a couple times at some of these camps. He's long, lean, athletic, does a good job catching the ball away from his body. Very, very good body control. Really the type of prospect that, Miami loves. Although, right now, he hasn't really shown a crazy amount of interest in the Hurricanes. And, whenever we've talked to him, a lot of the talk really has been around Ohio State. I really do believe he wants to end up at Ohio State. And I think that he likes that he's seen Ohio State come to Chaminade and recruit their players and have success recruiting their players. Heck, even before Miami really sunk his teeth into JoJo Trader, we thought, for a second, it was like, man, I think it definitely could be possible that JoJo Trader and Jeremiah Smith could end up playing together at Ohio State. That absolutely was not a wild take at all. Last January, in January 2023, when things really picked up. But I think Brady has to be one of the guys who I am really excited about. We know they also have guys like Kobe Howard, a 4-star wideout that, Miami has gone ahead and cooled on. It doesn't look like that's a prospect that Miami's going to continue to, very aggressively pursue. But Derek Cooper, I am really intrigued by Derek Cooper, 4-star 26 safety. I think he's around the number 26 recruit in the country, if I'm right. You might want to double check me on that. But man, I really like a lot of these young skill position guys. Maybe not necessarily some of their offensive linemen quite as much, but I really like a lot of their skill position guys.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome with Chaminade. You see it every year they reload. I feel like we always talk about the college transfer portal, but man, the Chaminade use that high school transfer portal, and kids just flock to that program. Like you mentioned, Derek Cooper, a guy that went from Cardinal Gibbons to now starring in Chaminade. Jabari Brady, a guy that went from Monarch in South Florida to Chaminade. These guys get to Chaminade and take their game to another level, and we see it year in and year out with those guys winning state championships and sending guys to the college ranks. Back to back, like you mentioned, ton of wide receivers, in that program. Another 2026 guy, Denarius Gray, committed to Auburn, but Miami's still very high on. Young quarterback Zach Katz, 2028 guy, has an offer from Miami already. So just a lot of talent coming out of that program and in the school. I think Miami's going to continue to recruit over the next few years and, beyond that as well, if they keep bringing this type of talent. Kind of want to stay in the Broward area. Steven, you went out to American Heritage and saw a couple of those guys, Coach Smith and company always bringing top talent to the table with his program. Two guys I want to key in on, Dia Bell and Byron Lewis. I want to start with Dia Bell because, he's the son of Raja Bell, NBA player, top 10 recruit in the country. A lot of teams are after him, to say the least. You had the chance to speak with him, future 5-star prospect, in my opinion. What was the latest with Dia Bell?
Yeah, so right now he's number 14 overall recruit, number 2 quarterback in the country. And if he stays on this pace, he absolutely will end up as a 5-star prospect. I think right now there's only a very slim handful of recruits that are 5-star players in the 26 class. But if Dia continues on this trajectory, he will end up as a 5-star. I have absolutely zero doubt about it in my mind. American Heritage is absolutely loaded with their 26 guys, and Dia Bell really is the crown jewel. Right now, it's looking like he's probably going to end up being the highest rated quarterback recruit to ever come out of South Florida. Teddy Bridgewater had a lot of hype surrounding him whenever he ended up going to Louisville all those years back. Dia Bell, I think, is exceeding that hype right now. You look at the body of work that he did in his first year starting as a high school sophomore. He was just absolutely excellent. He was clean, efficient. It really played without, a ton of stress. Was extremely confident. He throws an interception, he comes right back, and he's not afraid to sling that thing. Also, credit to his high school coaches. They've definitely put him in positions to succeed. He has excellent talent around him as well. But right now, I think there is absolutely zero doubt that this guy, a guy whose grandfather worked at the University of Miami back in the day, his father played at FIU. They've always had ties to the Miami area and had ties to the University of Miami. I think it would be considered a massive letdown if Miami lets the highest rated quarterback ever to come out of South Florida end up going somewhere else. And right now, he's looking to commit before the start of his senior season. So we're thinking probably before the start of his junior season. So we're thinking probably sometime later this summer, he is going to go ahead and pull that trigger. He hasn't set an exact date specifically, but he is looking to go ahead and narrow down his list a little further. Would not be surprised if he ends up camping at Miami this summer. Gets to spend a little bit more time around Shannon Dawson, who is also going to be at his school today to go see him. But whenever I stop by Heritage on Wednesday, there were already 5 programs that were already out there watching him. You could look at the lineup and you see Penn State, Auburn, Nebraska, Kentucky, Notre Dame all lined up right next to each other. Getting a very, very good look at Diabell. This is a guy who has really drawn, everyone's attention. And this has to be an uber priority for the Hurricanes, because I think that would be a very tough pill to swallow if he ended up going somewhere else. Very much the same way that Jeremiah Smith was a very, very tough pill to swallow whenever he ultimately ended up at Ohio State.
That was exactly what I was going to say next. It kind of reminds me of the Jeremiah Smith situation. The best wide receiver prospect, ranking-wise, to ever come out of South Florida, kind of let him slip through the cracks, get to Ohio State. I don't think that, that could be the case with Diabell. I feel like Miami sunk their teeth in super early with him. Like you mentioned, his grandfather, Roger Bell, used to be an assistant athletic director at Miami. His father playing at FIU, born and raised in Miami. So a ton of connections there with the Bell family and the Hurricanes, and I feel like they're not going to let him leave South Florida very easily. But I want to stick with that American Heritage offense, talk about Byron Lewis, a guy who recently set his official visit with Miami. Already one running back committed to the Hurricanes this cycle with Gerard Pringle. I know Miami wants to add that bigger physical back, kind of a bruiser, that lightning and thunder type of thing. Byron Lewis fits that role, fits that part, is a guy that has produced at the highest level against some good competition down here. What's the latest with him? Kind of what's he saying about Miami?
Yeah, I really like Byron a lot. I put an RPM in for Miami to land him back in February. But I think right now that Florida State is kind of, the hot team that's trending a little bit. Florida State has done a pretty good job recruiting him. And, Florida and FSU going on that 19-game win streak between the 2022 and the 2023 seasons. That really stood out to Byron, because back whenever Byron was a high school freshman, Mike Norvell told him that he was going to turn FSU into a national contender, and Byron watched him turn FSU into a national contender. He really likes that Norvell stood on his word, and he doubled down on his word. And he said, man, I am going to turn us into a powerhouse program. I'm going to get us back to the Florida State standard. And lo and behold, this year, they're undefeated conference champions. They end up missing the playoff, but they absolutely were a very big national contender. He'll also go ahead and take those official visits to Ohio State, Wisconsin. Ohio State was kind of the popular team early. Now maybe not quite as much. And then he'll also go ahead and visit Wisconsin. But I do kind of feel like this will ultimately end up coming down to FSU and Miami, because American Heritage has ties to both programs, and both programs have ties to American Heritage. Patrick Surtain, the former American Heritage head coach, he's the secondary head coach up at Florida State now, and he has maintained a good relationship with FSU, and he's been involved, a good relationship with American Heritage, and he's been involved in recruiting the high school. Over at Miami, former cornerbacks coach, now recruiting staff member Mike Rumpf. He was the head coach at American Heritage before Surtain was the head coach at American Heritage. And so he has maintained good relationships with the school as well. And, Mario Cristobal, of course, I'm never, ever going to count out Mario Cristobal. I will never count out Mario Cristobal of any recruiting battle, but I think that's going to be something that could end up coming down to the end.
Yeah, I love covering these in-state recruiting battles, Florida State, Miami, UF, all those, interstate battles with these top recruits, located in South Florida and, all across Florida, are just super fun to cover. Some of my favorites. And, that Heritage team, from quarterback to wide receiver to 2026 Miami kept Malachi Tony. They're loaded on the offensive side of the ball, and I'm excited to see what they do later this fall. So make sure to check out that updates on all of those high schools that Steven and I went to this past week, and we're going to be at a few more high schools next week, so stay tuned on that. Kind of jump from the high school recruiting to a little bit of portal recruiting. Miami went in home last night with 2023, or formerly 2023 three-star recruit who turned into a freshman All-American in James Madison, D'Angelo Pons, cornerback who earned on-3 freshman All-American status, like I just said. The portal's been a little bit crazy. Now it's going to slow down with the closure. But Steven, I just want to get your thoughts on D'Angelo Pons. He was a very, very under-recruited guy coming out of high school, I believe in the thousands in that 2023 class. Now he's kind of shot up a lot of recruiting boards across the country. He had something interesting to say. I asked him, hey, are you holding it against Miami that they didn't recruit you in high school, didn't offer you? He said, no, Miami's on the come up, and I still have a lot of love for them. Just hearing about that kind of story, a kid that went through the cracks, unranked, to now Miami really chasing after him. What are your thoughts on that situation?
Yeah, I really think that's an awesome story. And I feel like a guy like him, he's probably not going to hold it against very many programs that they didn't recruit him in high school. I feel like most of the time whenever a guy enters the transfer portal, he's not necessarily thinking, okay, who am I holding a grudge against because they did or didn't recruit me? He's thinking about, okay, where can I end up now? I think that I can end up at a place that's, bigger and better than James Madison. Maybe he can end up getting, a good NIL deal wherever he ends up. He can better his life more generally. But Miami really needs a cover corner right now in this class. I'm not sure exactly where they are with the scholarship limit. I think they're like a little bit under it right now. I think they're at like 83 or 84, something like that. So there's a little bit of room to play with. They took Deone Hill, but Deone Hill is really more of a depth filler. I think Pons is I think he's an outright starter. Miami really needs, a corner who can just lock someone down in man-to-man coverage. The secondary, I think, is probably the weak part of the defense right now, and it's the part of the defense that we have the most question marks surrounding. So adding a guy like Pons, I think, could really help solidify the back end because, we know Miami's offensive line is going to be better. They're going to be better at receiver. They're going to be better at quarterback. They're going to be better at running back between Damian Martinez and Mark Fletcher, and now Jordan Lyle coming in as well. It looks like they've upgraded a defensive tackle. It looks like Ruben Bain is going to be bigger and better than he was last year. It looks like they've upgraded at linebacker. It looks like Zaquan Patterson is going to be a good safety who can play early. But there are still questions about cornerback, and obviously having a corner, in a football or in an era of football that is very, very pass heavy and very pass friendly, corners really are valuable, and Miami needs one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like cornerbacks are at a premium, like you mentioned, in this pass era of college football. You need some guys to lock down receivers. And, when I look back at Pons in high school, he was right. He was kind of overlooked a little bit just because of the star power at Chaminade, where you have all these 5-star prospects, these 4-star prospects, and a guy like him can't slip through the cracks. But I just love hearing that type of story where he kept his head down, he worked, now he's making that jump to the power 4 level, almost said power 5 there. But awesome story on him, and we'll kind of keep you updated with that. He said he's looking to announce his commitment before May 15th. Schools like Virginia Tech, Indiana, where the former James Madison staff is at, all in the mix for him right now. So we'll keep you updated with that. Sticking with the transfer portal, we're going to jump into some basketball recruiting a little bit. Former Texas power forward Dylan Mitchell spent the last 2 days at the University of Miami on an official visit. Steven, I see you nodding your head. You know something about UT. Just for the people that aren't familiar with Dylan Mitchell in his game, just what were your thoughts watching him play for the Longhorns, and what do you think he could potentially bring to Miami?
Yeah, I won't lie and act like I'm not familiar with Dylan Mitchell's game because I did have a chance to watch him a few times on television. He's a former 5-star recruit, really hyper athletic. It really great, I think, within kind of, like the 15 to 18 foot range and in, decent jump shot, decent free throw shooter, but very, very athletic and willing to be the paint presence that your team needs. I actually think he would be a perfect fit at Miami. especially replacing a guy like Norchad Omier. Mitchell's maybe not quite the same kind of enforcer, but he is a very long, lanky, good interior defender. He is a shot blocker. He's maybe not as physically powerful as Norchad was, but he is a good shot blocker. He is able to contest shots. You are able to maybe run your offense through him a little bit in the low post. You can trust him not to make a stupid decision offensively. I actually think he's a really, really good fit at a school like Miami that needs some veteran presence next year, especially with Omier gone. I think that him and Jim Larrañaga would be a match made in heaven for each other. I think that would be a perfect fit.
Yeah, I took a kind of a deep dive into his game, and I wrote all the same things you just said. Uber athletic guy, can get it done on the defensive end, and near that rim, man, he's a great guy. He can find his way to the basket, pick and roll, throw a lob up to him. He's cutting to the basket, making those plays on the offensive end and doing the dirty work on the defensive end. Great defender inside the paint, on the perimeter. Those long arms, 6'10" wingspan, can block shots from almost anywhere near the court. And Jim Larrañaga said it after last season. We need to get big. Simple as that. Across the board, they've done it a little bit. They're bringing in Brandon Johnson, a 6'8" forward from East Carolina. He's more of a stretch forward type of guy. He's going to stretch out the defense. He can hit the 3-point shot. He's not as much as a worker inside as Mitchell. And then you bring in Lynn Kidd, kind of a traditional center, 6'10" from Virginia Tech. But I think bringing in Mitchell is kind of created a three-headed monster down low for Miami. I know the Canes are used to playing small ball with Murray being the biggest guy on the court at 6'7", but Larrañaga's kind of turning that page, and I think he's leaving that behind, bringing in these big guys. 6'9" Mitchell, 6'8" Johnson, 6'10" Kidd, and bringing in the Blackman from Stetson, the guard, the 20 point per game guard that was awesome last year. Bring back Nigel Pack. You have Jaleel Bethea coming in the fold. So Coach Larrañaga is cooking up some good things down with that basketball program, and we're going to have an update on Mitchell, coming out of the visit, seeing where his head's at with everything. So stay tuned with that as well. We also are going to have plenty of more stuff rolling through this morning on the site, so keep an eye out on that. That's all we have that for you guys all this morning. For Stephen Wagner, I'm Izubee Charles. Thank you for joining us. Hope you enjoyed the video. Leave a nice comment about, thoughts of the young guns running the show. Hopefully Gary lets us get on some more. Gary, if you're watching this, thanks for giving us a shot once again.
Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. If you're already subscribed, unsubscribe and then resubscribe again. Unlike and then re-like it. Do everything again. Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe.
And with that being said, like and subscribe. For Stephen Wagner, I'm Izubee Charles. Thank you all for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day.